I'm a person who enjoys history. And I don't call myself a historian because I'm an amateur at the whole thing. But I am very curious about things. So I read, whenever I get an opportunity, secular history and, of course, Bible history. One of my favorite historians is Luke, because Luke gave us the book of Acts and, of course, his variation of the Gospels. He tells us about the events that took place during the days of Jesus. And he tells it from a historical perspective because he wasn't there. And so you take all of this and you kind of just relish in it. That would be me. And Luke tells us about the evolving of the church in those early days, taking us up to chapter 6 of the book of Acts, where there were 7 men appointed. We called them deacons, and they were appointed to deal with the daily task of tending to the widows and those who were in need, making sure that the distribution of food and resources were equal with both the Jewish people and the Grecian people. Philip himself was Greek, and we don't have a whole lot of information about him. But we know that when persecution came to the church, and many people who were there on the day of Pentecost, and those 3,000 that were saved there on the day of Pentecost, and then as the scripture says, people who were added to the church daily, such as should be saved, they began to be scattered all across the different areas and what was described as being the outer regions. Well, Philip, he was an evangelist. He just had the heart of the evangelist. And so he goes to the city of Samaria, which I would assess that as being a very difficult task, because that city had a history of idolatry. It was established by a king by the name of Baasha, who was a descendant of Ahab, and that's really all you really need to know. And Ahab himself had actually built a temple there to the god Baal. And then the whole population had been removed by the Syrians, and people from Syria had been brought in, and then Jews who were kind of outcast, they blended into the society. And that's one of the reasons why you read in the scripture that the Jewish people would not have anything to do with the Samaritans because of their past being dotted with idolatry. And so Philip decides to go and preach the gospel. Truth being, he was quite effective. And scripture says many souls were saved. People were healed. Demons were cast out. But there's a whole lot more to that story that I want to tell you about as we go through the week. This is Pastor Jack King with the gospel on the radio broadcast.